ready to go? All right, let's call the special plan commission meeting to order. It is March 3rd, 2020, and the time is 5:15. I'll continue with the roll call. I am Mayor Kim Smith. I am present. Tom Smith,
Present.
Jared Holter,
Here.
Jan Brock,
Present.
Skip Tempty,
Present.
Amber Path, and Craig Breitsprecher.
Here.
Thank you. Item 2 is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting.
This is Craig. I'll make a motion to approve.
This is Tom. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Craig, seconded by Tom to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Is there any discussion? Skip?
For record purposes, I'd like to make sure that this is for the February 23rd meeting.
Oh, yes. Please note that that is for the last time we met, which was on February 23rd. Thank you for that clarification. Yes.
Thanks, Skip.
Anything else? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3 is public input. If there is any member of the public that would like to give public input to the Special Plan Commission meeting, please state your name, address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone that would like to address us under public input? Second call, if anyone would like to provide public input. Do you see anyone online, Katie or Amanda? Third and final call for public input. Public input is now closed. We will now move on for consideration and possible action on the following items. Number 4, the public hearing. This public hearing is occurring at approximately 5:15 or immediately following public input to consider text amendments to the Unified Development Code, UDC, regarding the following: animal veterinary clinic or hospital and animal boarding shelter or daycare center setbacks in section 13.02.63, sections A and B, and also the principal use table 13.02.22-1. Is there anyone who would like to provide public input at this time? If so, state your name, address, and please provide public input. Second call, if anyone would like to provide public input, now is the time to do so. Do you see anyone online? This is the third and final call for public input regarding the amendments to the Unified Development Code. Final call. I don't see or hear anyone, so I will now close the public hearing and refer to our planner, Katie Aspenson, for a summary of this item.
Thank you, Mayor. So included in your packet is the existing language for animal veterinarian clinics or hospitals, and then also animal boarding, sheltering, or daycare centers. When we had a request for a potential new clinic that considered doing animal boarding, we went to our new code and started looking at it as it's a vacant piece of property that is currently adjacent to a residential use. In looking at this, we found some discrepancies in the fact that we list 50 feet setback in certain cases, 100 feet setback in certain cases, and it was determined that when we reviewed it, this is something that we can clean up and be more clear and consistent between these two types of uses. For example, if you have an indoor animal boarding facility, you only need to be 50 feet from a residence today. But if you're an animal hospital, and one would argue that you're doing essentially the same thing, you have people coming in and out, dropping off, and it's an entirely interior use, we have that as a 100-foot setback. So the use inherently of animals coming to a facility and staying there for a period of time, we wanted to make that consistent so that all would be treated the same. And then we also wanted to make sure that when we had a person that had an animal facility that they wanted to do boarding, that we were directing them to the proper use. So included in the packet is the language stating that all principal structures and uses shall be a minimum of 50 feet to be consistent with the next section. And then if they provide boarding, sheltering, or daycare centers, that they have to follow all of those standards. Further, in B, animal boarding, we're noting that it has to be a minimum of 50 feet from a residence. Number 5 was supposed to be amended and changed from 100 to 50 feet as well. That was not reflected in this. We just realized it before the meeting. So if it is proposed as staff to move forward to Administrative and Judiciary Committee and also to the Common Council, we would also request that B5 be restated to stay. All outdoor designated areas shall be located a minimum of 50 feet from a residence. That way we're being consistent across the board. If it's an interior use or an exterior use, everything is 50 feet.
I'll ask a question though, but for the chickens, it's 100. So that's another outdoor animal. I'm just thinking consistency wise.
So
The chicken coop had to be 100 feet from
no, chicken coops do not need to be 100 feet away then.
the property line.
No, that was just for notifying people if
Oh.
you wanted to do chickens, and we don't have that in the code anymore because it was too convoluted to approach. You, in a residential district, you just need to follow our accessory structure laws. I can look it up quick,
Yeah,
but it's
no,
not
no,
50.
that's okay. I just wanted it to be consistent. So since
It is,
that
it's
did get
actually
removed,
less
that's
than
right.
50,
Okay,
so, for chickens.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Or are you done?
I had one other piece. The other part that we were looking at doing is adding a new use to the principal uses table called personal service. So this is another way of showing hair salons, massage therapy. We had a person question a tattoo body piercing, other uses that didn't really fall anywhere into the code. So we are proposing and up for Plan Commission discussion tonight. We have it in all of our business districts, B1, 2, and 3, also in both of our mixed-use community and mixed-use neighborhood district, as well as our medical campus facility. So it's not to delineate those uses in particular, it's uses of that nature that are done on a one-on-one personal service basis. So those are our 2 primary text amendments for discussion this evening.
Okay, I have a follow-up question for that. What if there was a hair salon or a massage there, or any of these principal uses in like a senior living center residential complex?
One second. You can have senior care facilities in our mixed-use neighborhood and mixed-use commercial districts. So those would be co-mingled uses that would be allowed,
Okay, thank you.
but not in a strictly residential neighborhood. It would have to be in that commercial area so that those uses can work together.
Okay, thank you. Anything, any other questions or comments that anyone has?
So someone who would do hair, like beauty hair in their house, that wouldn't fall under this.
We do have a separate part of the ordinance which specifically ties to home occupations and whether it's considered a major or minor, so that's separate.
That's a
from
separate
this.
one, okay, that
Yep.
wouldn't be,
So this is like an intent business in a commercial
Got it.
district.
thank you.
Yes.
How about you, Skip? Do you have any questions? Come on, think of a scenario, we'll quiz her.
Jan has a question.
Okay, Jan, go ahead.
I just wondering, okay, we haven't heard from any residents. So this was precipitated by a specific clinic wanting to go in, wanting to locate in our community.
Correct. We had a request for a new animal hospital that wanted to go into our community, and they had said maybe in the future we might want to do boarding. So because of that, my intent to them is don't build it to a standard of 1. Make sure if you think this might be a future use that you build it in a way that satisfies all future requirements. So if you wanted to build an outdoor pen in the future, you could just do that as long as you did that being more proactive and forward thinking. So
I just-
that's what precipitated the discussion.
Okay,
That's how we usually find out if our code is working or not, is when people ask us questions.
right. I was just concerned we're changing it for one thing, but it sounds like we're making it more consistent overall.
That's
Um,
our intent.
Yeah, I would like to hear from some residents who are located near these facilities, but no one is here. So, okay, thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Jan.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir. Mr.
Um,
Hartswicker?
I would like to ask staff if there's something unique or magical about the distances recommended, because in my opinion, I think I think we should make everything related to property lines as opposed to the residence itself. In other words, if we're going to have a minimum of 100 feet from a residence, I'd like that to read 100 feet from a residential property line. And the same true with the 50-foot setback. Is there anything that makes that illogical?
So the reason, and this happens throughout the code, in certain instances, we say to the resident versus the property line. We're more typical to the property line. The one item to note is that it's usually in the backyards of these instances for the residences, which already is required to have a 30-foot setback. So it would mean a minimum of a 20-foot setback onto an abutting property. In this case, and this is the case of the one that had come in. There is a residential that is a abutting neighbor. It's to their rear yard. So of the 50 feet, as it's being proposed this evening, 30 of it would be from the house. And not every house is exactly 30 feet. Some people have larger lots. Some people have 200-foot wide. No matter what, they still have to follow minimum setbacks. So this would mean that they'd have to do 30 feet on the residential property they could count, plus an additional 20 feet. The 20 feet that we're looking at is 10 feet plus the standard 10-foot rear yard setbacks. We're basically suggesting to, at a minimum, double the rear yard setback on the business property. So that's kind of how that 50-foot comes into effect. So 30 feet of the residential plus another 20 on the commercial. If we did it from the property line, my concern is that we're taking up so much of their land in terms of a setback that they can't use their land. So my question is, are we looking at a taking where we're saying you can do this, but if your lot happens to be only 100 feet deep, you can't build here. We're saying it's not possible to do that. So,
Well, it's not. It wouldn't be a taking unless it's a pre-existing structure, because there's nothing to take.
but that's my concern, is that if we have a setback that's like, you can build this and have your entirety, but if this is one of the only lots that we have left in the community, do you want to not allow them to develop? Could be 3/4, it could be half of their property on a setback that's no longer usable to them for that use.
And I see where the scenario could come up on smaller lots, you know. Okay, no, that's what I wanted to know, Katie. Thank you.
Yep, that's the justification, but I am open to changing that 50-foot if there is a want for that. The 50-foot is just to be consistent for all the standards within those two districts.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you for that. That was a good question, Craig. And Katie, thank you for your response. Jared?
I think in reading it, kind of going back to Craig's item brought up, it's really that we're okay with them having a structure and doing business out of it to the setbacks, but we're just worried about the boarding, sheltering, and daycare services. We're worried about the actual possibility of noise from those animals, or what's the nuisance that could be coming from that effect. You know, if they have the building to the normal setbacks, we're probably okay with that, but are we okay with like a dog kennel? If they put the kennel in the actual back of the structure, you know, then it would be that 50 feet, but maybe the kennel's in the middle of the structure and they have other setback, they have it's hard to define that. I understand it'd be very hard to regulate that way. It'd be hard for our planning department to regulate that. So this is probably the cleanest, but I think that's our intent, is to keep the nuisance away from the residential people. So just not giving anything like I want to go one way or another, but just I think that's our intent of what we're trying to get to here.
Thank you, Jared. Any other questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Otherwise, someone will have to make a motion.
This is Tom. I'll make a motion that we consider the amendment to the Unified Development Code regarding setbacks for animal veterinarian clinics or hospitals and animal boardings, shelters, or daycare centers, 13.2.63.a/.b, and the principal use table of 13.02.22-1. And do we want to note the B, changing that?
B5 would
A
read,
change in the proposed language in agenda attachment 4, B5, we will change that from 100 feet to 50 feet. That's my motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Tom Smith, seconded by Newt Temte, to approve the amendment to the Unified Development Code as described with the correction. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item 5, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion by Tom, seconded by Craig to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. We are adjourned. The time is 5:34.